and exploring lots of other places like national parks and stuff like that. So we like to see new things. I don't like to do the same hike more than once unless it's really good. So that's essentially it.
Cool. And if you have been subscribed to my channel, then you'll know that I have a number of things. I do storm chasing, a lot of hiking, and just kind of general interest stuff. Uh, but you can look at the description and get a list of all the videos that we're going to go over because we're going to be talking about caves tonight. Uh, then there's a lot of caves that are in Powder Canyon, and that's where my main hiking ground is. Steve, you're in Oklahoma. Kind of what's around you, and what have you seen?
In Oklahoma City, there's not a lot. Probably the closest place is southwest of here, about an hour, hour and a half. That's where the Wichita Mountains are at. So, but around here, the initial Oklahoma City metro area, there's not really a whole lot. There's a few little hiking trails and stuff around city parks, but that's about it. Nothing real exciting, at least by my standards.
So where do you go to see caves?
So there's legit caves in Arkansas. It's about 3.5, 4 hours away. At the same time, Wichita Mountains has, they're really mines, but they're considered caves. There's no spelunking or anything involved. You essentially walk in and walk out. But it's kind of remnants left over from the gold rush back in the day. But we consider them caves.
Now, have you been to one of the big caves like Carlsbad Caverns?
Yes, I have. Yeah,
Okay.
a couple of years ago, we went down there and did some, checked out some caves there. And then also western Oklahoma, about 2.5 hours west of here. There's quite a few natural caves on private property, and some of them are big enough where you can actually drive cars through them.
Wow.
There's some really big ones. So, but like I said, most of them are on private property. You have to get permission. You don't just want to wander out there in those areas. There is one called Jester Cave that I haven't seen yet, and it's very impressive.
Okay, cool. We've been to Carlsbad Caverns a few times. It's quite a bit of drive for either one of us, and that's a legit cave.
Yeah.
I guess what you could consider a legit cave. The caves around close to where I am, particularly in Powder Canyon, they are, I guess if you're a spelunker, you would scoff at the caves that we have, in Powder Canyon, because most of those caves are actually not, they're kind of where water has eaten through dirt and rock and left a hollow place. But some of them can be quite impressive. So tonight, I guess we're going to kind of step through some of our just a couple of our favorite videos on caves, I guess. And I was going to start with one that's in the what we call Burnt Draw. Now, one thing about the caves in Powder Canyon, when I was growing up and I was a teenager, I'd go out to where they'd call the caves, and there was one place that they considered to have the caves, and it's live on me. I am so BDJ photo saying it's live on me. Okay, so that's good. I guess that means it's working.
I see it. I see it on my iPad.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And forgive us that we did this episode 1. We did kind of for private viewing, and we had some sound issues, and we think we fixed those. So episode 2 here is our first public viewing, and I really didn't spend a lot of time promoting this, and I just kind of wanted to give us a chance to practice having a public stream, and if this turns out okay, then I'll probably be pushing episode 3 a little bit more. But anyway, back to the caves in Powder Canyon. There's one place where they call the caves, and it's kind of close to the Sad Monkey Railroad, what used to be called the Sad Monkey Railroad. And I remember going to those caves when I was 15. And when I got my family and started hiking throughout the canyon in the park, we found out that there are caves literally everywhere in that park. There's not one part of that park where there's not a cave that you can go through. Now, not all of them are what I call true dark caves, where you can go in all the way and not see your hand, but there are actually a significant number of them that are. So this first one I was going to kind of point out is one that's in Burnt Draw, and it's kind of right in the middle of the park. It's close to Sorensen's Peak. In fact, it's just south of Sorensen's Peak, and that first water crossing, or the first bridge now. I still call them water crossings because they just built those bridges a few years ago. But this cave is, and again, like most of the caves in Powder Canyon, it's in the middle of a draw, and it's someplace where there was a landslide at some point that covered up the draw, and the draw slowly ate its way through and opened up a cave. And I guess through flooding,
It has a few caves that you
and
can
things like
explore.
that. I'm going
On the way
to adjust
down.
the volume here so that I'm talking, not my former self.
Cedar.
And we were buffering. Wow. Okay. So here I'm coming in from the bottom of the cave, and we're here with some of my hiking buddies. And you kind of have to, it's kind of a low exit. I call this the exit where we went in, because that's where the water exits. And most of these caves in Powder Canyon, they are dirt. Now there's rocks mixed in and things like that, but they are dirt. And this is one where you can get in. I think at one point it is a true dark cave where you cannot see the exit or the entrance. And you literally, if you don't have a flashlight, you're not seeing anything. But you can see, you can stand up in these caves are, this particular one's probably 12, maybe 13 feet tall. And, they're kind of fun to explore.
How many spiders did you see in there?
Okay, so this one, I only saw one in this one. And most of them are daddy longlegs. And I don't know what it is with daddy longlegs and Powder Canyon, but you can, I've never seen, in fact, that's Lindsay there. She's the one that found it. I don't know if it'll come out in the video or not, but I think I get close here. Yeah, there's a little bit of it right there. But they get big. I've had daddy longlegs at the house and stuff, and they're like 2 or 3 inches across. The ones in Powder Canyon, I swear, they would cover my hand. They're 6 inches across from leg tip to leg tip. Huge. I couldn't believe how big they are. But here's about the extent of all the spelunking that you'll do is, kind of rock scrambling. It's the same type of rock scrambling that you do in the rest of the park that's not in the caves. Let me skip ahead here a little bit.
Makes you wonder what kind of stuff has been covered up over the years out there where there used to be caves and stuff.
Oh, yeah. So there you can see the entrance to the cave. And this is another cool thing about the Powder Canyon is a lot of these caves, they're not just one cave. They're actually a series of caves. So this one is what I call the main cave. And you can see me kind of scrambling up here. And that's what I call the main entrance, is where that light's coming from there. But because this is in the middle of a stream, there's another little side channel where more water is coming down from another side stream feeding into this cave. And this is a cave that, I actually haven't been into it. And Darla, one of our hiking buddies, the people you see in this are they're our Renegade hiking buddies. We have a small group of, we go off trail, we go everywhere. But Darla went in there and she saw a mass of daddy longlegs on the ceiling, and they were pulsating. It's the creepiest thing I've ever seen in that canyon. And
Nope.
I was just, I went in there and I got my camera close to it, just enough to see it. And I was like, okay, because they're right above you. And, and it's like a carpet of daddy long legs and they were quivering. And I sat there, I could just imagine that quivering carpet of daddy long legs falling. And I was like, nope, I'm getting out of here. And I didn't want to go up any farther. And of course, I
Yeah,
had to
I
get
will.
under one. There's one on that stick in that video. There's that stick there. There's a big daddy long leg on that stick. So I had to maneuver myself underneath that. Now I'm not really creeped out by spiders all that much, but I'd rather not have them on me. And
I can do rattlesnakes all day, but spiders,
yeah.
nope.
So if you really want to get a good sense of what that was like, you need to go down, click in the video on there, maximize it, and get the maximum quality that you can. And you get a sense of how they're kind of quivering around. And that cave goes farther up, but I was like, I'm done with that. I'm not going back in that one. And so anyway, that's the first cave I was going to kind of highlight in our caves of Powder Canyon. And this is actually kind of a typical cave in Powder Canyon. You know, you kind of crawl into it and you kind of explore it. This is very similar to what you would find over in the what we call the caves area. But over there, it's much more well traveled. I guess they're kind of they're kind of trails almost because people have been going through those caves forever. So they're kind of smoothed out and kind of they've had a lot more traffic. But the other caves, most of them are they're not well visited. I guess people just don't look for them that much. So all right, now Steve, you take us to, let's see here. Are we gonna do the Elk Mountain?
Yeah, you can do Elk Mountain first if you want. So,
okay. So where is this? How do we get here?
All right, so the Wichita Mountains in southwest Oklahoma. Whenever I show people pictures of it, they don't believe it's in Oklahoma because it doesn't look like it belongs in Oklahoma, kind of like the slot canyons in Texas. But Elk Mountain is on the far western side of the refuge. The refuge is a portion of the Wichita Mountains that's carved out. It's a wildlife refuge. It's broken up into the north and south side. The north side is a special use area. Not allowed to go there unless you work there. It's really dedicated to the animals, and that area is to be left alone. South side, especially the west side, has some insane rock climbing and scrambling. And Charon's Garden Wilderness area is where Elk Mountain is, and that's where we are here. We're getting, ready in the Sunset parking lot. That's where you park to actually get to Elk Mountain. Now, Elk Mountain, it's a strange mountain. If you take a look at the northern and eastern sides, it is smooth and it looks like a regular mountain. Now, if you see the western and southwestern side, it's sheared off like with a razor blade. It's just cliffs and draws full of rocks. And underneath all these rocks, there's places to climb. And you could spend all day out there, as long as you got a headlamp, because some areas are pretty dark. So the first place that we checked out on this hike was Wapiti Cave. And, I mentioned a while ago about how there's not really any true caves in the Wichita Mountains. There are a lot of mines left over from when they did gold mining. A lot of them were filled in. Some were left not filled in. Wapiti Cave is one of them. And, of course, that's another name for elk. And it's at the top of Elk Mountain. So anyway, we checked that out real quick. It's not very deep. It's nothing like the exploration of the cave, the video you showed a while ago. It's really just in and out, and that's that. Elk Mountain itself is a very big mountain. I believe it's the 5th largest mountain in the Wichita mountain chain. There's plenty of places to walk around. Here, what we're doing is we're going past a couple of arches, a couple of famous formations, one called the Apple and Pear. And I was just showing, this is a group that my friend Lori, she's got a women's hiking group called Grit. It's a running group and hiking group. And she asked me to guide them out there, and we had a blast. All those women were beasts. I mean, they're in very good shape. I was kind of scared before the hike, like, man, I don't know if I'll be able to keep up, but did very well. So, but we had a really good time. As you can see, it's very steep. You got to have shoes with some really good grip, and you can see some really cool arches, like the one that's on the side by Apple and Pear. And the video doesn't do it justice. It's very steep. You have to be very careful. And on the other side of that arch, it drops off about 150 to 200 feet. I mean, there's a lot of spots where if you don't handle exposure very well, it's probably not for you. But I've been climbing out here for over 30 years. I know where everything is for the most part. So the main target of this hike was the rock rooms. Now, the rock rooms are probably the closest thing you'll get to like the type of caves and stuff you'll see at Paladuro. Now, it's essentially, like I said, a draw where boulders have fallen in and lodged, and you just crawl in and out of them. The rock rooms is probably the most famous hike that the Wichita Mountains have. They're often confused with the boulder rooms. The boulder rooms are on the bottom of Elk Mountain, and there's boulders the size of houses and stuff, and it's more family friendly. The rock rooms is at the top of Elk Mountain, and it's dangerous. I tell people, go with people that know what they're doing. I get requests for guides all the time. I have people saying, man, I'll give you $200-300 if you take me, my crew out. And a lot of times I just don't want to take on the responsibility, of it because it's very easy to get hurt. So as you can see, it's pitch black dark in places. You have to have headlamps. Usually I bring a spotlight. I didn't bring one this time. So it's not the best footage while we were climbing through, but it's very challenging. I've taken my kids through. I've taken all of them except my youngest one through. And honestly, I think he could make it. That guy that was with us was Calvin. He's a friend of mine, and he happened to be out there hiking too, and he had never been to the rock room, so I tossed him an extra headlamp, and he followed us through as well. So it's always cool when you run into people out there that have been watching your videos and stuff like that. We had a really good time with them tagging along. Him and his kid, they both did very well. But
that is something that is kind of it's an interesting problem to have is when you're taking an unfamiliar group out there, kind of gauging whether or not you've made a mistake or not. But it's nice when you get a group that can handle itself and you don't have any problems with them.
They did very well. There's a couple of spots that the first time I did the rock rooms, I was probably 6 or 7 years old with my father. And then the next time I did it solo. I don't recommend doing it solo. I really don't know what I was thinking, because if I would have fallen or slipped, they never would have found me, because there's places you can fall, 60, 70 feet down. Now, matter of fact, there's one portion of this, it's called the chain room. There was a doctor in the 90s that actually fell here. His name is Dr. Philip Mitchell, and us hikers collectively have named one of the mountains Mount Mitchell, kind of in his honor. He was a very avid hiker and climber. He decided to go through the rock rooms by himself one weekend, and where there's a chain at now, there wasn't before. It's a real sketchy area. He slipped and fell, broke his leg, and he ended up dying of hypothermia because nobody knew he was out there.
Oh, yeah.
So after the fact, they found his car, and it was a really big search effort. I think I was probably 11 or 12 when this happened. I can still remember it. So it is a fatality hike. This is probably the area of the refuge that this right here is called Treasure Cove. And there's an area right over where he is called the Slide. And it's a giant ramp about 300 feet long. And they're climbing up to it, as you can see. And we were going to take that route, but there was water in the rock rooms, which was very unexpected because it hasn't rained at all out there. Now, probably today, it's probably full of water. I've gone through it with ankle deep and waist deep water before. Sometimes it can make it easier because there's some spots you have to slide down. So sometimes the water kind of braces you a little bit, so it's good. But we weren't expecting the water, so I didn't bring an extra pair of shoes. So we had to navigate down this steep canyon. Of course, video doesn't do it justice. This is very steep. And we were sliding all over the place. So we decided to go around the slide, and Calvin actually found a new way to go under the rocks that I've never taken before. So that was pretty cool.
That's neat.
But this, you get a workout on this hike for sure. It's very tough. A lot of people don't understand what it entails. They see the video. I've made a couple of different videos. I put one together that actually gives coordinates and instructions, because there's going to be people that are going to try it without a guide. There's like me, I'm that kind of person that would do that. So I made a video for them just to say, hey, this is what you do. And, because people ask me all the time, and I can't always get out there to guide them. And plus it's rough on you. Like, I do have back issues, and there's times where you got to squeeze and bend and flex, and it's tough. What'd you think about the rock rooms?
Good.
Come here. This here is Kellen. If you've watched my videos, you've probably seen this one. He's another snake expert. He's the one that's always doing the headstands, and he went through the rock rooms. He did it, and one of the youngest kids I know of that actually ever did it. But
That's neat.
he did pretty good. Did you enjoy him?
Mm-hmm.
You want to do him again, don't you? Yeah. So
Especially the slide.
he liked the big slide. The slide was very intimidating to me the first time. I did not want to go down it, but I did, and now just a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah, also the Wichita Mountains, besides the caving and stuff that you can do, like looking at some of the mines, some of the best climbing outside of Joshua Tree and Yosemite. There's so many routes, class 5 sport
Yeah.
and trad route.
Right.
There's people everywhere that climb. So,
Huh. Well, that's neat. What's the elevation changed on that mountain? Where you start your hike and you go up?
about 700 feet from the parking lot to the top. Most of these mountains cap off anywhere from 2,000 feet to 2,000. I believe the tallest one's 2,464. So
Okay.
you're looking at about 600 to 700 feet elevation gain doing that.
Okay. Well, we're gonna need to take you to some of the caves here, and we're gonna have to try to arrange a trip out there to try to see if you'll take us to some of the caves out there.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, so the next cave I have is kind of a new cave. We discovered this cave quite recently, this past spring, and this is on private property, and this is a cave really close to what they call the Indian Trail, Indian Point Trail, where it's the trail that the Indians took on the south side of Powder Canyon to get into the canyon and out of the canyon, and it's the same trail that Mackenzie took to get down for the Battle of Paladuro back in 1874. So we've got access to this part of the canyon. There's a family member that has the lease to this part of the canyon now, and so we are just hiking all over it as much as we can while we can. Because we don't know how it's a multi-year lease, but still that could things change, and so we're taking advantage of it as much as we could. And on the way up from one of our hikes going up Indian Point, I just happened to glance over and I saw this little hole in one of the creeks off to the side of the trail, and it's not completely obvious. I mean, I think I went up. Actually, I think I went off the trail a little bit just to kind of see what was down in this creek, and I noticed a big, what looked to be a big cave. So the next time, when we saw that, it was towards the end of the day, and we were tired because we did a lot of hiking that day. So we just kind of put it on our to-do list to check out next time. And so this is that next time, and it's not an easy, I mean, there's definitely no trail to it, but it's kind of a surprise. And again, it's the same story as last time. For most of the caves in Paladuro, it's in the creek, and it's where the creek water has washed out a cave. And this is not a completely dark cave, but the size was really surprising. It's got quite a good span, and I could see very little rock. This is mostly a dirt cave, which kind of made me a little nervous considering, looking at all that dirt on the bottom of the floor and how recent it looked. It didn't, that doesn't look like that has been there a long time. And but we went up there and explored it, and it's really kind of a cool cave. And just like the other cave, there's another channel. So you see the main channel coming in where the water comes in up to the right-hand side, and you see this darkness going up on the left-hand side, and that goes up quite a ways. And the first time this is on our way down into the canyon, and Amy and I were the only ones that actually hiked over and went up in there. And then we hiked down the channel and met up with our group and did our hike down in the bottom of the canyon. And then on the way back, we actually checked out that we actually went farther up. But anyway, so we're just kind of exploring around the main part of the cave here and hiked up and out the backside. And on the way down, coming back through the cave to meet up with everybody, let me back up a little bit. Amy went over to a little hole in the wall that's in there. And she couldn't, she was like, there's a chamber here. And we went up to this hole that's in this wall, and there's like a whole other cave in there. It's the strangest thing. I've never seen this before in any of the caves out there, where there's like a side cave that's tall and big. You could crawl in there if you wanted to. It'd stand up. It's like tens of feet tall. And we saw birds going in and out of it. That's why it kind of drew our attention. So I stuck my camera in there. This is my GoPro Max that I can, do the 360 so I can aim the camera after I take the video. And you can kind of see another channel that's another entrance or exit to this cave, to the side cave. Up towards the top, and the birds were kind of looping through one entrance or through one hole and going out the other. So they obviously, know this place pretty well. But it's just kind of a strange thing. It's kind of a cool cave, and it's just kind of amazing that these kind of things are just out there, and who knows how many more are like that. So we had to hike up and look from the top, and you can kind of see Amy up there. She's actually climbed up to where that other entrance is into that cave. And then we found out that that mound of rock that she's on, it's hollow. There's, she's sticking her stick down there and can't touch the bottom. So who knows what's below that rock pile. And
Wow.
that's looking from the top down into that side entrance. And my leg kind of fell down into that one hole. So we kind of got off that because we didn't know if we're standing on top of a big, a third chamber that was huge or not. So, and this little formation that's kind of a chimney. I stuck my thing in there, and we saw birds going up and down, and that's just like a 1 foot diameter chimney. It goes up probably 10 feet or so. So this thing is just honeycombed with caves everywhere. And so we just kind of gave this name the South Rim Cave because it's on the south rim of the canyon, and it's probably, I'd say, a good 1.25 miles from the park itself. So it's not it's not something you can get to from the park. Actually, no, I take that back. It's actually pretty close to the park at this point. And we're trying to figure out how deep that is there. And I have that 6 foot hiking staff, and my hiking stick is a 6 foot staff, and it would not touch the bottom there. So we decided to get off this mound here. But anyway, cool cave. So next time we take you to the South Rim, we'll have to hike over there and get to it.
Cool.
Now, the cool thing about this cave is once you go to it, you can stay in this stream and go all the way down, and it's a pretty easy hike. It's a much easier hike from this cave down to the bottom of the canyon than it is on the Indian Trail, where there's these gnarly switchbacks with gravelly pebbles everywhere. And so the hike from this point down is much easier than the hike, just going down the trail. But going upstream from this cave up to the top, it's much harder than it is with the gravelly stuff. So, before I switch it back to you, here we're on our way back up, and our other hiking buddies hiked up into the top part of this cave, and it actually goes farther than we were willing to go. We went up so far, and there's my hiking buddy Chuck. Actually, he's my storm chasing buddy, who also hikes. But there's a 7 foot 7 foot tall rock there that you'd have to climb up on, and if you climbed up on top of that, you could go back. At least we could see as far as 50 feet, and it could have gone back even farther. So it's just honeycombed of caves up there. So really neat. Depends on how much risk you want to take, I guess.
That's pretty cool. It's a good find.
All right, so now we're going to go back to you to Eden Cave.
Eden Cave is cool. Eden Cave is located over in Arkansas, Buffalo National River area. Got to take a lot of back roads and stuff to get to it, but it's actually just off of Buffalo National River. It's called Lost Valley State Park. One of my favorite all-time hikes. I've done this one twice. I did it solo, then I took the kids back because I knew they'd enjoy it. That's one thing that's different about the Wichita Mountains. You can't actually swim inside the refuge. So here, my kids have a lot more fun when they go to Arkansas because you can swim in the waterfalls. Now, they don't run all the time. They do need good rain, so I always try to time it with the rain. And we caught it this time after an amazing rainfall. I think a couple of severe storms rolled through. This is Eden Falls, and it's big. I'm trying to remember the actual feet. Maybe a 40, 50-foot waterfall here. Up above it is where the actual cave is that we're going to explore. The very first time I went here, I didn't know about that cave. I saw the water coming out of essentially the cave, and I thought, well, this is where the trail ends. This is it. And someone goes, "Have you ever been back there before?" And I was like, "No." And he handed me, I didn't have a headlamp. He's like, "Do you have a headlamp?" And I said, "Well, back in my truck, I do." He's like, "Take mine here and follow us." So he gave me his headlamp, and man, that was one of the coolest hikes I've ever done in my life. So, once you go, now there's some elevation change here. It's a few hundred feet. You're gradually going up from when you actually start. You don't notice it until you get to this part. And there's a lot of spots here in Arkansas that are like this, where you got giant bluffs and, waterfalls have carved out areas in the canyons. I'm shocked there's not more slot canyons. I've just found the one Thunder Slot Canyon, which was amazing. But here you can see the water flowing out. And so a lot of people see this and they think that's the end of the trail. They're like, "Oh, that's it." And that's what I thought the first time. I didn't do my research on it. Anyway, I took my kids back, and my two oldest didn't feel like going. They wanted to stay outside. That's looking down, where the waterfalls we just saw. So we took our headlights and spotlights and head back. It's probably 150 to 200 feet back. And there's some spots that are, it gets really, really tight in some areas. The kids didn't have to crawl. I had to crawl. But you can work your way back there, and you can hear it the entire time. You're getting soaked from being in the water and stuff. You can hear a huge waterfall in the background cranking. And if I think this is the one I bought the spotlight on. Yeah, I've got the spotlight in my hand here because I vowed that I'd bring a spotlight back this next time. And when you get to the back, there's about a 40-foot waterfall underground. And it's amazing. It's like out of the movie The Goonies, when they find the underground treasure in the waterfall and stuff. And the kids had a blast. They loved it. And one of my favorite all-time hikes.
Amy and I have actually been here, but we didn't go into the cave. We didn't have our caving gear. We didn't have our lights or anything like that. And plus, the flow wasn't that much. And so I didn't want to get lost looking for something that might not, the waterfall that might not be there. But we definitely want to go back when the water is flowing a little bit.
Yeah, it is, man, it's amazing. And of course it's rock, there's not dirt and stuff here, but there's some really tight areas. It does remind you a lot of like slot canyons and stuff. But man, when you get to the chamber where the waterfall is huge, and there's like a rim all the way around. So you can walk all the way around. You're not in the water. And it's cool. I've never seen anything like it. This is definitely a hike that I'll do 2 or 3 more times. I absolutely love it. And the kids want to go back too. We didn't make it back this year. There's still some other waterfalls that I want to make it back to. I think I went to Arkansas once this year, and it was to go to Thunder Slot Canyon. And I did a couple of other waterfalls while I was there. But there are hundreds. But this is the only one that I know about that you actually can climb underground and see it. Now, there may be more above it. I don't know at what point. I haven't gone above to explore. I'm not sure at what point, the water enters and goes, I don't know if you can see more waterfalls above that, but also you're bushwhacking, and you're talking about the heat of summer where there's timber rattlesnakes, pygmy rattlesnakes, copperheads. I've seen a lot of snakes in areas, not in here in this cavern per se, but it's an area known to have quite a bit of snakes. So you have to be very careful.
I did see, I believe it was a copperhead when we went here. And we just went to the entrance of the cave and looked up, and I was like, Man, I wish the water was flowing and I had my gear.
And this wasn't even, when I took my kids, the flow wasn't as good as the first time I went, but it was still, obviously you wouldn't want to go like in the middle of a rainstorm, because I think this could flood. and it might
Yeah.
trap you, but it was afterwards and it was just misting a little bit still. But speaking of snakes, when I went to Thunder Canyon Slot, which that granite, maybe a mixture of sandstone as well. That is the slickest rock I've ever stepped on in my life. And there was one part where I decided, man, I'm just going to wade through the water. And I got in the water and looked, and I saw a snake, and I'm like, yeah, watch this be a cottonmouth. It was a cottonmouth, so it was venomous. So I had to get out of the water. And I got it on my GoPro, but it's so small, it's really hard to see. You can see ripples in the water, but you can't identify it from the GoPro.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of venomous snakes in that area.
So you're still not there yet. You're still hiking up in there.
Oh, we haven't got there yet. There's a little bit of a delay on the and we had to move a little bit slower because of my boys. But I gave them the headlamps, and as you can see, they don't have to. They as small as they are, there's a lot of places they could just stand up. But that last portion that's probably 20, 30 feet. I'm pretty much crawling on my stomach and knees and stuff to get there. And it's cold. It feels good, though. And the day we went was very hot. So inside the actual cave itself, it felt great. But the spotlight I took was still not strong enough. I mean, it was enough to get some decent pictures. And you know how the GoPro is. It's not great. I mean, I guess the 9 is a step up. But, this was a Hero 8 was this the 8 that I was using? No, this was the 5, as a matter of fact. So I hadn't even had the 8 yet. That's why it's a little bit shaky and
so
stuff.
You made it there. See, this makes me want to take my tripod and a prime camera and set up and do some light painting. See if you can, paint the waterfall with light.
I bet you right now this thing is roaring because they've got so much rain in the last couple of days, all those waterfall. I bet you right now is probably the perfect time to go with foliage, all the water flowing. Oh, my gosh. I bet it's amazing right now.
Yeah. That's cool. That's definitely on our list.
Yeah, let me know when y'all go back because I think I'd like to tag along again.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind doing it again. Yeah, the boys absolutely enjoyed this one. It's hard to find hikes they really enjoy. They like the slot canyons in Palo Duro. Of course, they love caves, but this one, they couldn't believe there was a waterfall underground.
That is cool. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what's upstream of that, where the stream goes back into, where it goes into the ground, and then what's above it.
I looked at Google Earth and maps and stuff like that afterwards, and there's no visible streams above the ground. I know there's a lot of trees and stuff, but it may come from one of the aquifers. I really don't know, but at the same time, it only flows a lot after a big rain, so it's definitely there's something feeding it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was able to shine the spotlight on it a few times to illuminate it, but for the most part, it wasn't the proper lighting to get everything.
Yeah. That's good. And I assume that's if you didn't have the lights, you'd be pitch black.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a couple of times we turned the lights off and, nothing.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my all-time favorite hikes there. It's a good one.
All right. So the last cave video I have is the largest cave I know of in Palo Duro Canyon. And it's the Rush Springs Cave. And again, this is the same story, but a little bit different. This cave actually wasn't caused by a cave-in that occurred on top of a existing creek. This is actually formed by an oxbow. So the Rush Springs, it flows down into the main Prairie Dog Creek, and it's a pretty significant side channel, I guess. It's constantly being fed by a spring, as some of the major channels, they're all spring fed. But at the point to where the cave is, it's a vanishing stream, and that's actually quite common with all the side streams going into the Prairie Dog. Is the spring flows farther up,
Time to get your flashlights out.
and by the time it gets close to the prairie dog, it vanishes. So the stream actually is probably flowing if you dig down deep enough. But there's an oxbow in this particular part of the creek that goes around this big red cliff that you see here. But at some point, the stream worked its way through that raised area where the red cliff is, and it worked its way through, and it punched a hole through there. And now the oxbow is not flowing. You can tell it's significantly higher than the stream by maybe 30 feet or so. So it's been this way for who knows how many thousands of years. But the entrance to the cave is probably a good 10 feet, 12 feet maybe. And you can see at some point, the water completely fills that because there's flooding debris at the top of this cave, all throughout the cave. And this particular cave, I've been to it a few times, and I've always the part where the entrance chamber is what I always call this here, and it's where you can kind of see the light. You don't have to have a flashlight. You can kind of see this area, and again, you can look up and see the flooding debris up there. So that water completely fills this chamber. And this chamber is, about 10, 15 feet tall. Every time I've been up to this cave, there's this entrance chamber, chamber 1, and then there's a secondary chamber, which is farther in, and it has kind of a dome, and there's a sandy area. And then there's a third chamber, which is a lot lower, and there's a sand area, and then there's and it's probably the tallest part of the cave is back in that area. So those 3 chambers were the only ones I'd ever been to because it actually goes down a little bit underneath a rock, and we never did get back in there because it was full of debris. And if you go to the south side of this cave, where it comes out of and meets back up with the oxbow, it's always full of water. There's always been water down there. And you just couldn't, unless you wanted to swim in mud, you're not getting in the cave from that end. So I'd never been farther than the third chamber here. And here we're going through, the divider between the entrance chamber and the secondary chamber, where there's a large sandbar, is this kind of clump of debris that's always been there. There's big logs. There's just vegetation that's been washed in, and it kind of collects there. And then you've got this area where if it's recently rained, that is real wet sand and mud. It's kind of a combination of a sandy mud, and you can't go any farther. But when it's dry, like it is here, you can get down, and it's not, you don't have to really crawl on your stomach, but you do have to get down and kind of crawl a little bit. And this room is probably 50 feet wide. I mean, it's a very wide room. And we're kind of working our way back. And again, I'm expecting to come up to this point here and only get into that last chamber where it has that tall room. But this particular time, we were surprised that the debris channel at that far room was actually opened a little bit. That's Devin. He just hit his head on that rock there. So now we're in the third chamber, and you can look. It gets pretty tall in here. In fact, it gets so tall you can see the roots from the vegetation above. So I'm not sure how thick that room is, and it kind of makes me hesitate just hiking around on top of that red outcropping, because I mean that's it's a good 15, 20 feet there, and you can see roots. So I'd hate to be walking up there hiking around out in the open and then fall 20 feet into this cave. That would ruin your day. So we get down there, and like I said, it's that there's that opening, and it allowed us. I'd only been able to look through like a tiny, like maybe a 6-inch diameter hole into the chamber beyond, and I always knew that it went on, but I didn't know any of the details of it. Just hit the water right away, or how far you can go. I on Google Earth, I kind of traced out the path of this cave, because it doesn't go straight. There's a it kind of turns a little bit at one point. So I kind of estimated, and I think this cave is a good 300 feet long, at least 300 feet long, from the entrance to the exit, accounting for that little bit of a turn there. So I'm looking at this, and I'm kind of nervous about going on because I've never been on before. But we had Lindsay and Terry with us, and they're coming up behind us, and man, they were a lot braver than I was on this day. They just hopped in that thing and just took off. So it kind of, I kind of had to follow.
Peer pressure.
Oh yeah, couldn't let the ladies show us up.
This place is enormous.
Yeah, it goes way back. And so I'm sitting there kind of like, wow, should I go on or not? And there goes, in fact, I think Lindsay at this point had already gone. Yeah, and you can see the light from her way up there. So Terry follows and I follow along, and it's a kind of another sandy area that's kind of wide. And there's side channels to this also. So if you shine your light up to the left or to the right, you can see areas that go back quite a ways. And you kind of have to get down and kind of crawl on your hands and knees at this point for a little bit. But then it gets to where you can stand back up. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. So this is me coming through. And see, now I'm able to kind of more or less stand up. And I'm trying to catch up. I can't even see. If I turn my light off, I couldn't see their lights. That's how far ahead they were. So this is a wild cave. This really is and this cave is really remote. If you look up where Rush Springs is on the map, it's on the edge of the park, and it's not a hard hike, but there's no trail that leads to it. So you kind of have to know where you're going and how to get there. You've been to Powder Canyon. There's no direct place, there's no direct way to get anywhere out there except up streams. And this one, if you go, you can hike down the main Prairie Dog Creek and then hike up Rush Springs. But that is a hard hike because I've always found that there's tall weeds and tall vegetation in the creek between this cave and the Prairie Dog town. So it's easier just to go cross country and kind of hike your way through. So now we're down at the end, and now we're down to a where there's a pool of water, and it is really muddy. And I thought this may be it, but there's a narrow channel of debris and mud on the left-hand side as we're looking here. And you can see the exit where you come out of the cave there. And so we're kind of exploring ways to get there. And again, it was, the ladies led the way, and we had to follow. So, but they were able to find a way through, and we didn't actually get too muddy. Let me fast forward this here. Oh yeah, I don't know if Terry or Lindsay went first here. Looks like Terry. Terry's the one that pushed her way through. She's knocking debris down to try to make a path for us a little easier. Because that mud was it's the kind of the mud that you could lose your hiking boot on. It's the kind of mud that you could lose your ankle high hiking boots in.
What's the name of that lake that was out there when we went to Canoncita? That where all that quicksand was at?
Oh, I don't know what that lake is, but it's I guess it would be Cannon
It was,
Lake. I guess it'd be
yeah, it was
Cannon
dammed
Lake.
up by the rocks falling. I can't.
Yeah.
There was a certain name for that, and I can't remember what it is now.
Yeah, I can't remember. So we actually made it out the other side here in a little bit. Let me fast forward. So here's Devin and I making our way through.
Landslide Lake. That's it.
Oh,
Lake.
yeah.
Yep.
There's me going through.
Yeah, I am blown away at the scale of this thing.
And normally this whole area that we're walking through is full of water. And it's full of water. The water would be up to your knees at least. And that's every time that I've been there. And this is one of the few times that, actually it's the only time that this chamber here isn't just full of water. So it's just a particularly dry season, I guess. But we made it out. And then we actually, because we left all of our gear on the north side, we actually hiked back through the cave. Actually, no, I take that back. Devin decided he'd had enough, and he hiked around the oxbow. And we beat him, I think. But me and the girls, we all went back through and enjoyed the cave going the other way. So now, out of all the places in Powder Canyon, all the previous visits, we'd go to the south end of the cave, and you'd always see huge bullfrogs. The biggest bullfrogs I'd ever seen in the canyon are right there in there. I'm sure they're there buried. They bury themselves and they kind of hibernate while their water's gone. But huge bullfrogs. So, but anyway, yeah. So that's Powder Canyon is full of caves. So it's a cool cave. So
it makes you wonder, I said it earlier about buried, like the entrances were buried maybe. I mean, there's probably chambers all over that just have cool stuff in them, like artifacts and stuff.
Well, when I was, like I said at the beginning of the stream, when we started really exploring the cave as a family, when I had my, we were raising our kids out here, we actually, every place in the canyon that we went, every single channel that we went up, there's very few places where we did not find a cave. And they're not big caves, a lot of them are not big caves, but they're all caves that you can go in. Some are, very few are what I call true dark caves where you can go in and not see light from either the entrance or the exit. But a lot of them are just tiny little caves, and I wouldn't go in them, but the kids would. My kids just love caves. They'd go and just any little hole in the rock, they'd go and see. They wanted to see how far in they would go. And it's kind of funny because most of the caves out there are water channel caves, and so you'd go in the bottom, and all of a sudden we'd look up top, and they popped up out top somewhere, and. So anyway, caves. They're a lot of fun.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm going to check some of those out sometime when I'm out there.
Well, so I guess that's all the caves that we're going to cover in the live stream. So anybody watching out there, go ahead and leave a comment on what cave was your favorite, what caves you want to go see, and also suggestions on what the next episode, what our next episodes need to cover. We're going to, we've got a long list of ideas on things to do and places to go and things that we can cover in these podcasts. So if you have any ideas, let us know. And anything that you think we need to improve on. This is our first public one. So we're working out details. We were delayed 10 minutes trying to figure out how to get the stream started, but next time we'll try to get it started on time. So what do you think, Steve? Anything else?
Yeah, definitely. I think feedback is really important. Don't be afraid to hurt our feelings. Tell us what you like, what you didn't like. Have how you think we can make it better. And, this is in its infancy, and we want to try to educate people from all over about, the cool stuff to see around these parts. And we need support. So share it, subscribe to our channels, and get the word out.
And again, we're going to be alternating this podcast on our channels. So the next time, there will probably most likely be on Steve's channel, and I think we have that figured out, and we're going to give that a try. So be subscribed to both our channels, and there's a link down there to my website, nerdynativeskills.com. I will be posting on that when these streams will be going live also. So thanks for showing up. Thanks, Steve. And
Yep.
I guess we'll talk to everybody next week. Thanks.
Yep. Everybody stay warm. Bye.